Stallion, why should I come to the Passive Income Retreat in Denver, Colorado this October?
You should come to this retreat if you're saying to yourself right now, I need passive income to come from my active income. If you're the person in your circle that is the most successful and you have nowhere else to go, and all those passive income ideas seem very elusive, but you know in reality you've never slowed down to actually figure it out.
Yeah, I'm saying, man, you must come if missing out on another summer, right? Like when you think about how many summers you have left with your kids and you're like, how many more summers can I afford to miss because I am burning 60 to 80 hours a week in my job, regardless of how much money you make. Your family doesn't care. They want time with you. These opportunities, they're giving you an opportunity to sit in a room with 8 and 9-figure entrepreneurs so that you can figure out how to create financial freedom that exceeds your monthly expenses is what this event's about. Don't miss the opportunity to come to Denver, Colorado, be with the Stallion and I, and about 50 to 60 other highly successful entrepreneurs like yourself. Go to thepassiveincomeretreat.com and sign up right now. Limited spots available. Welcome into the Financial Freedom Roundtable, where each week we break down complex financial topics so you can more easily understand them and, more importantly, take action on your path to becoming financially free. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Grateful to have you in the room. I'm Russ Morgan. They call me the idea guy, mostly because bad internet now didn't sound so good to me. Well, enough about me for a moment. Let me introduce you to my co-host, my partner. He's Italian Stallion, and he's got the license plate cover to prove it, Mr. Joe Murray. Stallion, good afternoon.
What's up, my brother?
Man, today we're talking gold mines, money pits. What does that even mean? What is a financial gold mine and a money pit, and why is it important for us to talk about today?
Well, here's the thing. I think it really pertains to advice. And when it comes to financial advice, one of my main thought processes, consider the source. There's typically got to be some sort of bias or some sort of background and experience that person or institution or whoever it may be is speaking from. And just make sure that source lines up with what your goals are. I think if we learned anything from Wall Street is that they've created a mindset that really serves them well and has convinced you and I at some point in our lives that it was to our benefit to do their ideas. And so anyways, that's just my thought on this is make sure it aligns with you.
Considering the source, that's pretty interesting, right? Like when we think about trying to answer life's greatest mysteries, where do we go for that information? We go to Google. That's where we go, right? Everybody types in Google. So if you were right now to type in Google and say, is the stock market crashing, right? Like, because when we think of financial stuff, if we get nervous about where we're going in the world, we type it in Google. So today I typed in, is the stock market crashing? And Google quickly responds back top response, no. As of right now, the market isn't crashing. So to take a deep breath, the sky isn't falling, at least not yet. In fact, on July 17th, the S&P 500 was up over 17% since the beginning of the year. Google tells us the world's fine, Joey. Everything's going great. Now, I happened to type into my little Apple app, right? And I put in the NYSE to check to see what the market's doing. And it tells me for the last 2 years that we are down. We've been losing money for 2 years in a row, but Google tells me since January the 1st to July 17th, the market was up 17%. So got to consider the source. And also you got to be able to consider what information are they using. And I think today, what we want to make sure we break down for you is that financial advice is garbage and should be treated as such, right? Like you have to know that the information coming to you most likely is an opinion, unlikely from experience. And we want to share with you some of the experiences that we've had, both the good and the bad, right? The gold mines. When you're digging for gold, it requires effort. It's gonna take some time in order to have that happen. But the money pits, man, we can experience those fast. Tom Hanks, the movie that of my youth, Money Pit, you get to experience all of that in that movie. We'll see some of that come out. But Joey, thankfully you and I are not breaking down this topic all by ourselves, are we? We got
Yep.
the dream team of financial coaches join us. So let me bring one in to you. To my left, I got Mr. Incredible. His superpower, speed to financial freedom, and the real beauty of that speed is it's contagious. My man, Mr. JD Hill. Say hello to your fans, JD.
Hey, fans. And thank y'all for waving. It has been so long, and it felt good to do that again. Thank you so much, Russ.
Tell me why this topic today in your mind is so important for us to cover.
I mean, you touched on a lot of it. I think it's interesting the way that we go to try to collect information, and usually we go to the people closest to us, right? When you ask the question, and I was going to say this tongue in cheek, like, where do you go to get advice? I'm like, I go to my wife, right? But we tend to go to the people closest to us, the people you work with, the people you're in community with, like that's who we go with. And the reality is that if you want what you've always had, then do what you've always done, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want something different, then you have to be willing to do something different. And what I mean is that if you look around and take a landscape, right, of the people closest to you in your life, if their financial world is not what you want, you don't need to be doing what they're doing. But it's likely that you're getting financial advice from those people, meaning you're seeking affirmation from those people to say, hey, I've been talking to this person. They say I should do this. What do y'all think? And they're giving you yes or no answers to wherever it is that you're going to make these financial decisions. And the reality is that you should probably stop actually taking their advice. You should stop doing what they're doing, because if you do what they're doing, you're going to get the results that they're getting. And that's something that as I actually left the financial world and left being a financial advisor, the wildest thing happened. My financial world actually started succeeding. It was wild. When I stopped doing what Wall Street told me to do and started doing the opposite, I started having financial success.
Oh, so good. Well, let me get around to my right here. I got the true financial Sherlock Holmes of our day. No problem too difficult to solve. If I had only known him earlier, I'd be so much richer. Said everybody, Mr. Downtown Ernie Brown. Nice to see you,
Man, it is good to be seen. And they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. I'm with you guys. It's good to be back. I missed the old podcast.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm with you guys, Russ and Joe. What you're talking about, I realize that sometimes you got to sift through a pound of crap to get an ounce of good. And unfortunately, you're talking about Google. You asking Google. My experience on the interwebs is you don't even have to ask. You try to watch a YouTube video and you've been looking up some money related things. You got some unsolicited advice coming your way on 15,000 different ways to become rich. These guys trying to sell you their programs. So yeah, there's no lack of stuff out there. You got to be able to sort through it to get that ounce of good.
Well, that's good. All right. Last but not least, the retiree of our group, Mr. Catch Me If You Can. When he's not killing bears with his bare hands or spear diving for tuna, he's dropping gold nuggets right here. The one and only Mark Cargucci. Welcome, Mark.
Good afternoon. This is a good one. When I saw this topic, I immediately put my name down that I wanted to be called up to be part of the podcast.
He signed up for the draft.
I did. And speaking of draft, which I think is a great segue, Russ, you seem to be somewhat of an aficionado of baseball. For me, this topic is reminding everyone, not every at-bat is a home run. And not every at-bat is even a single just to get on base. Sometimes you strike out, sometimes you get walked. Other times, Russ, as a pitcher, you bean people. And every now and then you get hurt. And it does hurt. But you got to get back up there. And that's kind of the angle I want to come at on this topic is, just reminding you that if you don't step up to the plate and take that risk, you're guaranteed to never connect with the ball. So some of them are great, some of them not so great. I'm sure we've all got a few examples.
Oh, I love that. Well, today you're going to be listening to us break down these main points. We're going to talk about what is fool's gold. What are those money pits? What are those lessons that we've learned that we need to try to avoid? But also at the same time, what are some of those financial gold nuggets? And lastly, what are the things that we can take? Are we going to take these beatings and flake? Or are we going to build upon them? So we're going to, third part's going to be flakes or bricks. Let's jump in right now to today's podcast.
Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
There's a saying out there that you can borrow information or you can try to do it yourself and pay full retail for it. Our job today on the podcast, gentlemen, is to give people insights, education, use our experiences and the ones that we've observed from others to help them avoid making all the mistakes. Let's talk about some of those mistakes. Let's talk about some of the fool's gold that exist out there. Joey, give me one to start off this section.
And I'll tell you, one of the ones that tripped me up early on, and I think it's just a very common mistake, is that deferring taxes is to my benefit, right? There's 401ks, there's certain IRAs, things like that nature, especially when you start getting to higher tax brackets. The common kind of theme that you hear in the financial world, including people that are very smart, like CPAs and accountants, they would tell you, you go to them and say, hey, what can I do to reduce my taxes? They would say, well, you can put money into these qualified plans and that will defer the taxes. So you can save money on your taxes today. Well, sounds great, right? It sounds like an immediate way out of pain. But the reality is that when you really start to think about the history and then the future of what taxes are and what they will be, you have to kind of come to grips with, do I really believe that taxes are going to be lower in the future or at least the same, and that this deferment is allowing me to benefit? And I think, Russ, you broke down for me early on the fallacy behind that and the idea that Wall Street, along with the government, have created this idea that this is a good thing, but in reality, it's a way for them to hold on to our money today and to gain from that in the process. And to me, it never really does benefit you in the future, and it only helps them continue to get more and more of your money.
So the kind of the fool's gold in there is that they have this carrot of tax savings. We're gonna save taxes, and that's what is the lure, right? And they hook you in with that, and then they reel you into the boat for the next 30 to 40 years by giving all your money into some sort of system. I love that. All right, JD, coming to you. What's the pyrite? I don't know if you guys know that. That's the official name for fool's gold. I used to have some pyrite in my office, Joey and Ern. You guys remember that? What's the lesson? What's the bad information, bad advice that exists out there in your opinion, JD?
Well, one, thank you for teaching me about the actual name for fool's gold.
Hey.
Learned something from a guy from Alabama. Well, I think some bad information, and this is coming from somebody that used to be a financial advisor, is that you need to diversify. Right? Everybody tried this before. Is that you need to diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I just think that is candidly, I think it's silly. Warren Buffett is known for saying that diversification is protection against ignorance. And the reality is that when you think about diversification, right, you're spreading your risk, theoretically, right, across different asset classes. And the reason why you do that is likely because you don't actually understand what you're doing. And so in an effort to not take really big losses, then you would spread that risk across other things that you don't know what you're doing, right? So you're not really becoming an expert in anything, nor is the financial advisor that's helping you, because they don't know either, because they're recommending you diversify. In fact, there's an individual that some people may know. He's, Andrew Carnegie. I don't know if anybody recognize that name or not. Andrew Carnegie, kind of a big deal. He gave a commencement speech to a college in the 1800s, and this is what he said, and I thought this was so fascinating. He says, "The concerns which fail are those which have scattered their capital," which means that they have scattered their brains also. They have investments in this or that or the other, here, there, and everywhere. Don't put all your eggs in one basket is all wrong. I tell you, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. He says, look around you and take notice. Men who do that do not often fail. It is easy to watch one basket and carry the one, and it is trying to carry too many baskets that breaks most eggs in this country. He who carries 3 baskets must put one on his head, which is apt to tumble and trip him up. And for me, what's interesting and why I share that is because once I got my arms around that, I got laser focused on one thing, which was real estate. And I have just gone so deep in that space. I'm not an expert, right? But and we'll get into this later. When I started to diversify and get out of that, that's when my eggs started falling, right? And things started crumbling. So I think the idea of diversification is fool's gold. It's terrible advice.
Oh, man, that's going to be hard to follow, Mark. I'm going to give you a chance.
Oh, solid. Well, I mean, come on. The obvious choice is to pay off your house. Come on now, pay off your house. Pay that thing off. Have no mortgage. And then just sit back and wait for that to put food on the table. Because I have yet to see a paid off house put food on the table. I've yet to see equity locked in a home pay the bills, keep the lights on, put food on the table. And so what was pitched to me, I obviously came from a good place. I don't think the people that were telling me that were thinking, how can we hose Mark today? I got an idea. Let's have him pay off his condo, and that way he'll be ruined. No. But it was putting those dollars into something that seemed like it was a good idea, but yet it didn't create anything for me today. And so all that did was just lock up all my friends in jail and leave them there until I realized, and again, don't get me wrong, paying off my condominium, the very first piece of property I ever owned, oh man, it felt awesome for a couple days. And then it felt horrible thinking about all the money that was stuck in there not working, not doing anything. And so that to me was fool's gold. It seemed like a good idea. It was pitched as a good idea. It felt good for about a day or two. And then I realized this idea is not getting me closer to that ultimate vision of financial freedom.
Man, what you guys have broke down already is 2 out of the top 3 biggest mistakes we say that people make, right? On their path to becoming financially free is putting money in places you can't access it, like 401ks, retirement accounts. And then number 2 on that list is trying to pay off everything, believing debt freedom equals financial freedom. All right, Ern, what's some fool's gold from your end?
Yeah, I think one thing is this line of thinking that my money is better off in the hands of my advisor. And there was a study that came out, CNBC posted this, that at that time, middle of 2022, approximately 3/4 of actively managed funds were underperforming index funds. And so you say, my money is better off in the hands of my advisor. And by the way, I don't believe that that actively managed funds always trail index funds, but in the case that the vast majority, overwhelming majority were, that's a problem. So what do people say to that? Well, advisors would say, well, that's fine because it's actually better for me to have your money, to manage these people's money, because when the market's down, I can help people stay away from making emotional decisions that negatively impact them. That's what I've heard. That's what they say. And so, well, okay, you're going to underperform. Now, imagine a scenario where you were not happen to be giving all of your money to the advisor, and you build up a little money on the side, and you come across what seems like a good opportunity. And so now you want to go ask your advisor, who is your advisor, by the way, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, I've got this idea. I've got this cash, or maybe I want to take some cash away from you and do this deal. Maybe that's also part of the scenario. And you ask them for advice. I've heard stories, I hear about this, financial advisors not being able to give any good input for a couple of reasons. Number one, maybe they're not personally doing that kind of thing themselves. Number 2, they can't make money from it themselves. And number 3, they represent a firm that offers products, and likely you're bringing to the advisor an idea product that they don't represent, and therefore they can't endorse it or advise you to do it. Otherwise, they'd be quote unquote selling away from the products that they offer. That's frowned upon in their industry. So there's a huge issue of underperformance and just not being able to get good advice from the person you're paying for quote unquote good advice. That's fool's gold.
That's exactly what I was talking about, considering the source, right? You got to consider what's behind this advice. And in that case, it does not line up with you for sure.
No, that's so good. Well, here's my fool's gold for you. Because Joey was able to do it, because JD was able to do it, then I should be able to do it. Not that I'm busted on those guys, right? Like, those guys are ridiculously smart guys. Joey was the valedictorian in his class. I mean, JD's been able to groom that mustache too, and keep his family for the year that he's had it. Like, there's a lot of wisdom between these two. But why do people say that? People say that all the time. Oh, because someone else did it, then I can do it too. Well, Russ, why is that fool's gold? I thought that was okay. I thought that's why I was listening to the podcast. Well, the fool's gold in that is to believe that just because someone else did it, that means you can. No, what is it that they did, and how does that align up with who you are may allow you to do it, right? If you can gain the resources, the insight, the networks, all that they possess, then yeah, you could probably do it. So what I would say is just be challenged when you hear an idea. Don't get so excited when you see us talking about one of these items on our passive income report and assume just because Russ and Joey are doing it, I should do it too. No, you got to get on a call with one of these coaches. Here's an opportunity. wealthwatchstreet.com/free call. Because what you need to understand is who you are as an investor. And once you understand who you are as an investor, you have your investor DNA in hand, then you know if the things that you start to do are going to line up and going to be able to match up exactly with the way that you're gifted so that you will have the most influence over that outcome. I believe that's fool's gold. All right, well, we've kind of talked a little bit about some of the negative things out there, but let's get into some gold nuggets. Let's talk about some of those good ideas, some of those good lessons that we should be using. JD, I'm going to come to you first.
Man, I personally have not been able to create any measure of success on my own. Now, I love partnerships. And once you realize what your area of genius is, you know what you're really good at. And then all you need to do from that point is figure out other people that want to go with you in the same direction on that same journey to financial freedom, and figure out, do they have an area of genius that's complementary to yours, right? Do y'all have the same vision? Are you going to the same place? Do you have the same foundation, right? And then is there a way for y'all to partner together to achieve really great things? There's a really great quote. I'm sure y'all have heard before, but it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I truly believe that, because I've been able to do the things that I've been able to do, not because of myself, but because of amazing people that I've been able to meet and to be introduced to and to build relationships with, that have been so generous and so kind to help me get to where I want to go. So for me, I would say the financial gold nuggets is partnership. Don't be scared to partner with other people. The other great benefit of partnership too is it helps you realize that you're not alone either. Like, you're going to be with someone else that's dealing with the same challenges and struggles you're dealing with. Because sometimes it can feel like you're all alone and on an island. So that would be my financial gold nuggets.
How about you, Mark? What would be a financial gold nugget from your end?
For me, it was, ironically enough, I was just looking at my comment here, and it really was trading time for money. And by that, I say, when I moved home in April of 2002, I got my first, actually I got my second, but I got my first real, quote, airline job flying for the dream carrier. I thought I was done. I was working at Aloha Airlines. And my parents said, hey, look, why don't you just stay at the house for the first year and save all your money? I thought, sweet, this is gonna be great. And they said, but you're gonna read a book. And my dad gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, if you read this book, I'll let you stay here rent-free. That trade of that amount of time it took to read that book was worth to my dad more money than me paying him rent because that was a long-term investment. His idea of, hey, you can either try to figure this out on your own, or here's this book. Seemed like this guy's done a pretty good job of figuring it out. So why don't you read it? That was by far one of the greatest trades of time for money that I've ever done. And that really lit the fire to say, okay, there's got to be a better way than just flying airplanes, which, don't get me wrong, is an incredibly easy way to make money. Still a whole lot of fun too. But sitting at home on your own time zone, not dealing with airports, airline food, or any of that, worth way more than all of that. So that was my gold nugget, is education.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we were able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Stallion, that's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/PIOS. There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, pop quiz day. Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared though for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
So good.
How about you, Stallion? What's your gold nugget?
I'm gonna borrow one of the quotes that I've heard Robert Kiyosaki say recently, is that he's a billionaire in debt. And while I am not a billionaire in debt, I take from it the nugget that you have to use debt in a wise way in order to become financially free. And I come from the whole background, the whole Dave Ramsey background, where debt is bad. Debt, get rid of all debt. It doesn't matter what it is. It should always be treated as the first place to pay off with any excess capital that you have. And when you realize what that actually turns into, it turns into a loser's game that never actually creates any freedom at all. You think you're getting rid of all these monthly payments, but if you zoom out and you say, what will actually produce freedom? It's if passive income is greater than monthly expenses. That's the only formula that works. And if all I do is focus on this monthly expense side and I just try to reduce that, and I never focus on the passive income side, then just like my good friend, Mr. Incredible, says all the time, you can never pay off the cost of living. So while in the last 2 years, have your grocery bills gone up, down, or stayed the same? They've gone up. What about your medical expenses? What about the vehicle expense? Whether you have your car that's paid off or not, the tires on that car, the gas in that car, the oil changes, all of the maintenance, are those things going down, staying the same, or going up? They're all going up. And so if you have it focused on the left side, while I'm not saying just constantly add debt for debt's purposes, I'm saying use debt wisely to leverage into assets that will build that passive income greater than your monthly expenses, and you always win.
I think to the completion to that sentence is, I'm a billionaire in debt, and paying off debt is dumb. Right? That's good. There's some definitely lessons within that. How about you, Ern?
Yeah, well, on that whole debt piece, the common goal is I got 40 years to become financially free. I want to retire in 40 years, so I'm going to spend the first half of that possible time playing defense. I'm going to pay off my debt, and then I'm going to start building wealth, and magically, in a very short amount of time, I'm going to build up enough that I can live on that. That doesn't make sense to me. I heard somebody smart one time say that you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a bull's anus, but you'd rather take a butcher's word for it. And the point is, you don't have to go first. I'm not personally, naturally the most creative person, and so it's pretty daunting thinking if I had to just sit here and magically dream up the path and all the steps that it takes to become financially free, there's no telling what I would get into, where I might turn wrong. And fortunately, the good news is there's paths previously traveled that I can follow. All I need to see is the path. I need to meet the person who's been down that path and the results turned out good for them, and just follow what they've done. That's the good news.
JD, you mentioned earlier that when you got out of your lane, right, that's when you saw mistakes happen, when you deviated. And boy, I don't have enough time in this podcast to tell you all the lessons I've learned and the mistakes I've made when I didn't follow my investor DNA, when I didn't invest from a point of expertise, but just a point of curiosity, excitement. Like today when I opened my BlockFi app and it told me, hey, you're eligible now to withdraw. I know we're in bankruptcy, but you're going to get able to withdraw. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to get some of this crypto back. I got like a full Bitcoin there. I got like 14 Ethereum. I'm going to get my little 30, 40, $50,000, whatever all that adds up to back. And I go to make the withdrawal and it's like, no, all of that you can't touch, but this $105 you got in the Gemini USD fund, knock yourself out, bud.
Oh,
man. And so I just think, like there's just areas where I get outside of my lane. I want to roll that. So point number one, what is some of the fool's gold? What is some of the bad information we're getting? Point number two, we've been covering what is those gold nuggets? What is good lessons, good insights? And here I want to tie a bow on it, right? Point number three, and I'll go first, is what are we going to do with all of that information, right? Is it going to be a flake? Like, are we going to flake out and quit, right? Or are we going to build a brick from it? And I say that because, man, I remember the first time I invested in a Ponzi scheme. The first time, right? Like, you would think, God, it should only be one time. It should be 0 times. But I remember the first time, boy, it was hard. I mean, Joey remembers I was a whoop puppy. I feel like, man, the world was crashing in. Who am I? Had this like, imposter syndrome. I was thinking, I'm just not gonna be able to make it. I'm just not gonna do it. And I felt like I was gonna flake out. Like I was gonna go the opposite way. But I was challenged by the fact that people in my circle said, Russ, man, why were you doing that to begin with? Why were you pursuing this? Right? And if you don't continue, if you allow this expensive lesson that you just learned to go to waste, that would even be worse than losing the money. Right? Because now not only have you this expensive lesson, but you go back to the place where you were, where you knew it wasn't getting you to where you wanted to be. And so how do we build a brick from that? How do we use this information? How do we use this experience to grow from? So I'm going to tell you, and I've said this in other podcasts, that investing is hard. While you're investing, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. But every opportunity that you have, learn. And every opportunity, gain insight, gain information. I think more times than not, we've got to realize that we've got to have more reps. We just have to do it more frequently. You used a baseball reference. Like, here's the thing. The guy who comes up to the plate in the major leagues, hits a home run in his first at bat, maybe the worst thing that ever happens to that kid. Because at that point forward, he thinks this is how it works. I remember a guy who played for the Braves. He hit a home run in his first game. It wasn't his first at bat, but it was in the first 2 or 3 at bats. And he went on a roll for like 12 games. He hit like 10 home runs. Everybody labeled him the next Hank Aaron, right? Next Mickey Man. And man, the pitchers realized that dude couldn't hit a curveball. And for 2 years, he struggled mightily, right? So he had to figure it out. He had to use those reps, those experiences to get better. And now he's having a pretty amazing career. And so I think about that with investing, is that prepare yourself that there's going to be lots of punches in the face. And as the old Mike Tyson saying, you don't know what's going to happen until you get punched in the face, right? So once you get punched in the face, what are you going to do with it? Artie, what do you think? What's a lesson How are you going to take that lesson? Are you going to flake or are you going to build something with it?
Yeah, that's good. I'm sitting here learning. I appreciate that. Well, I think this idea that coming into this world, even if financial freedom's new to your world, it doesn't mean that financial freedom is new to the world. And so what can you do with that? All that it takes for financial freedom is an idea and then the model. But the problem is, where am I going to get the idea? Where am I going to get the model? JD talked at the beginning about getting all the, if you want to get what you've always do what you've always done, that idea. And man, in my personal network, I didn't have a lot of models to financial freedom, right? And it's like, where am I going to get the idea from? I go and I try to talk to my friends and family and any connection I can get in this area about how I can become financially free, and get nothing. Where am I going to get that? Well, you need to find one, and then you need to dig deep. You need to join a group, maybe an inner circle, maybe. And maybe that's not the exact path that you're going to take, right? Maybe the idea is not in that group, but certainly those well-connected people talking about their ideas are going to know someone who maybe has done the exact path that you want to take and connect you. You just need to get into that circle. You need to change your environment. And I feel that that's where you can have success. That's where you can make a brick, is change your environment, change your location. And it doesn't mean you have to move. You can do this virtually. It's amazing.
If only a place like that existed, though, Ernie. If there was
what would you call that sort of circle of well-connected people? What would you call that?
Golly, I'll tell you what.
All I know is that I wouldn't want to be on the outside of that circle.
Exactly.
Eddie's always a fan of Ennies. Anyway, the Ennie circle.
That's good.
What about you, Joey?
Well, I take a brick for you. Here's my thought. Some of you are listening to us right now thinking, is it too late? Like, maybe this is news to you for the first time, that, man, I've been doing things wrong. I'll make another epic classic movie reference and say, don't be like Dumb and Dumber, okay? Where you're driving across the country in the wrong direction, okay? Waking up. Do you remember when Lloyd wakes up and realizes they've been driving in the wrong direction? That may be you right now. And if he can get on the right path, he was pretty dumb. You have a great opportunity, okay? And my point is, follow the path that Ernie just mentioned that already exists. Get on a call with one of these coaches at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call. They could talk to you about the masterminds, the Inner Circle Plus, and the Passive Income Mastermind. But the bigger thing is they can lay out the path, give you the vision that leads to where you put your cash, that leads to how you become the right investor and know who you are, and then take care of tax strategies. And our 5 pillars are already there for you. And it's never too late to reorder your house to get you to financial freedom as fast as possible. We have tons of examples of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who get this information, and it's like the light bulb goes off, and all of a sudden things just start to fall in line and they get there as fast as possible.
I will correct you, just out of love, thinking everybody that loves Dumb and Dumber. It was Harry that was asleep. Lloyd was the one taking them in the wrong direction.
Oh, how did I miss that? Oh,
Harry was so bad, and I could not let you get away with that.
Thank you. Oh, I'm ashamed of myself right now as a avid Dumb and Dumber fan, and I just totally botched that up. Thank you.
Petey the Parrot. Let's go with JD here. Flake or brick?
I've got 3 boys, and as a father, you're always wanting to lead from the front, right? Because your kids watch literally everything that you do at all times. And that's a lot of pressure. But, I teach my kids all the time that if you don't quit, you can't fail. And I think so often something like they just get paralyzed in and say, well, I just won't start, right? Because if I don't start, then I also can't fail. And the reality is that by not starting, you are failing, right? Because you quit before you started. And I share all that because for the longest time, for so many of my beginning years in financial services, I was also scared to get started as a financial advisor, right? And I think that if you don't get in the game and just get started and take the first step, then you can't ever take the second step and then the third step and then the fourth step. And I've made a ton of mistakes. I've followed people that I like and trust and care about into investments that I never should have done because they were doing them. And I'm like, oh, he knows. And Russ didn't know. Let's be honest. He had no clue. Right? And it's amazing that he's got $150 in his BlockFi account. I've only got 43, right? Like my money's gone too. But I learned from that. And what I've learned is that I don't need to invest in things that I don't understand. I love the expression, those who pay attention. And that relates to so many different things. Like I paid a very valuable lesson. And what I learned was that I need to stay in my lane and stay focused within my buy box and the things that I'm really good at and go deeper there. And I need to continue to be in a relationship and partnership with other people that are going in the same direction that I'm going in, that are 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead of where I am, so that I can learn from those folks. Just like Ernie was saying, I'm not that creative either, but I'm a really good parrot. Like I can go and mimic what other people are doing and do that really, really well, but I'm not going to be a trailblazer, right? But I'll follow in right behind you, right? And so if the people that are around you aren't going where you want to go, find people that are going where you want to go because they want you to go with them. So many people are so helpful and so kind that they want other people along the ride with them on the journey to financial success. So don't be scared to get started. Be scared that you won't start. That's what should scare you.
All right, Mark, I'm going to give you opportunity as we wrap up section number 3 is kind of the flakes or bricks. What are you going to do with this information that you gained?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you find out that all of a sudden the idea that you had was taken by someone else, you have to kind of reorganize on the fly. So let's talk about Ponzi schemes here. Flake or brick, right? But what's really great about this is, look, I've made mistakes in investing along the way. I've had things that haven't worked out. I've had an oil rig that just evaporated. Apparently there was no oil there. I've had a lawsuit in Baltimore. I have now officially been a part of a Ponzi scheme. Not me running it, but me as a unwilling participant. And what was really fascinating about that is after that happened, I wasn't really angry about the thing. I was bummed, but I knew that it happened. And I knew that statistically, you know what? Poop happens. But I was talking to one of our other passive income mastermind members because we talk about the value of community. We talk about the value of leveraging the collective mind, people that are in different stations, different perspectives, people that can help you see what you might be missing. And the gentleman I was speaking to, he said, well, you should really read this book. And it was by Annie Duke, who's a professional female poker player. And she wrote this book, and it's called Thinking in Bets. And I started reading that the other day. And it was so cool because she broke everything down to statistics and making decisions based on the information you have. If you've ever played poker, you know that you get 2 cards to start. And it's those 2 cards that you have to make a decision on. Is this something that I want to move forward with, or is this something I'm going to step away from? That decision now gets superseded by the flop. And now all of a sudden there's a new set of information, a new set of possible outcomes. And she said, you can't keep beating yourself up over the decisions you made based on the information you had. And so you think of it this way, what are the odds of being eaten by a shark or bitten by a shark? Well, if they're 1 in a million, people go, dude, yeah, go swim in the ocean. It's totally fine. Yeah, but if you're that one person that gets bitten by a shark, those odds are horrible.
You don't want to be
but it's the same odds. It's 1 in a million. And so stop beating yourself up. Bad things are going to happen. Bad people are going to do bad things, but you do the best you can. And if you can surround yourself with a team, surround yourself with a group of people that you can actually leverage on and say, hey, I'm looking at this. I know Russ is looking at it, so should I not do it? Just based on that qualifier alone. And so finding that group, I think, is something that we can all leverage from. And so that would be taking your flakes, smelting them down into a big old brick or a doubloon, whatever you want, a Cougaran, help yourself. But that'd be my way to look at it.
Well, all right, gentlemen, thank you so much for delivering true gold, right? Like the lessons that we have, that gold can last a long time. I hope that you found value in this podcast. This is something we do every single week where we discuss topics and break them down individually. You've probably been listening to us this summer as we were going through the Becoming Your Own Banker book series, but we're going to be coming back every single week and breaking down topics like this. Hopefully that you'll join us in this. Right now, we've got to get in with our inner circle. If you would like to find out what that process looks like, how do you start building your own financial freedom with having one of these coaches help you navigate some of the pitfalls, help you avoid some of those fool's gold things that you've had in the past, go to what'swallstreet.com/free call. But right now, please hit the subscribe button if you're listening to us on YouTube, or hit the rate and review there on your podcast so someone else can find this gold as well. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.